Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of my devlog series on my game, My Weekend on Mars. As promised, I deliver one episode a month and so funny story, I might have accidentally slept through an entire month, which is not ideal for a devlog series, but I didn't disappear for nothing because today we've got actual progress. I just had a hiccup. It'll never happen again. Probably. Maybe. If you don't know what this is, why'd you click on episode 3? This is a devlog series where I document the process and struggles of publishing my very first video game. A game all about a little rover's adventures on Mars. It's funny how much this month has been about space, which really got me thinking about working on my game again. First we got 2 big movies about space, and then we actually got to send a rocket into space.
So much space, need to see it all.
So let's get right into it because this episode is more groundwork before we can get into the exciting stuff. But there are some pretty exciting developments this time around, so stay tuned until the end for some cool updates. Now today, we're talking about UI, which is just a fancy way of saying the stuff you click. I took a similar approach as I did on another project that I've been working on for about 2 years. Just one of those projects that got too big for me to complete in a reasonable amount of time. Regardless, I did learn a thing or two and have a basis for a simple main menu. For a game like this, we don't need a lot of options. In fact, most games don't clutter the main menu too much because its only real purpose is to get the player into the game as quickly and seamlessly as possible. I mean, come on, we're not designing the actual rover's manual here, we're just making buttons. So in our case, I just made 4 simple options. New game, checkpoint, settings, and quit. If I have to explain what new game and quit means, I can't help you. Checkpoint is actually a system I haven't worked out yet, but essentially it's going to be a way to load progress once you hit certain checkpoints that I'll make later on. As for the settings menu, it does what you would expect. It allows you to change audio settings, change resolution, and just otherwise customize the game's experience. Either that, or I guess I could force players to play the game from a calculator. Nothing too crazy for this menu, it's just so players can customize their experience a little and wait before the start of the game. I might add an audio track to the main menu in the future, as well as an actual background image, but that'll come later. I'm thinking of making the background a landscape of the game as a whole, but that won't be done until I make more of the game, so for now, today's thumbnail is a good placeholder, a literal work in progress as you can see. Now with the main menu and the settings menu done, we have one more, the pause menu. This is the player's option to stop the game whenever they want, freeze everything, take a break, drink water, touch grass, maybe adjust the setting, or quit the game if they have to. Now I'm a little bit proud about how this came out, so if you say it sucks, I'm gonna be a little bit sad, but the pause menu is his face. Yeah, since the rover's face is a monitor that displays eyes, I thought having a pause menu be his face was a cute option. There's nothing you wouldn't expect, resume on pauses, and everything else is the same. Now the next segment of this episode will cover the HUD, or the heads-up display. That's essentially all the information that will be on the screen while you're playing the game. Your health, ammo, equipment, maps, or maybe more. But I can't really show you the HUD unless I show you the game itself. And I do have a pretty cool development for you today. As of right now, we actually have some extra help in the game development process. I asked a few people around about their opinions on the game, and someone reached out to me asking if they could develop some art for the game. I essentially told them that while I wasn't in the art phase yet, I was going to be working on tilesets soon. Without much else, this person essentially just made a tileset for the game, and I love it. So a big thanks to NightTheNight for his amazing work so far. He told me he was inspired by Kirby's Adventure for this art style, and if you know me, you know I love Kirby. So far he's put together these simple block tiles and a background block. Unfortunately, I'm having some issues running the game with the background due to tile recognition in the game, but here are some images of what the game would look like once I fix these issues. Thanks again, NightTheNight, you genius man, you. If you guys want to support this guy, I implore you to check out his socials linked in the description. I'll continue to gush about how awesome and inspiring he's been for the project for the remainder of this video, and likely many more. But wait, there's more. I still designed a few things, so he hasn't completely taken over the project just yet. Strap yourself in for these, dear viewer, it'll blow your mind. For the health bar, I decided to design the icon as a battery with markers that clearly show the player's health. Useful information to be sure. I actually made the icon for every health value, with the color changing based on the health level. Green means good, and is the health color you will have when you're at 5 or 4 health. However, if your health drops to 3, it'll turn yellow as a warning that your health is dropping. At 2 it turns orange, and at 1 it turns red to really express the player is in the danger zone. Nothing too complex, the main idea is giving players visuals to help them understand where they're at, and I thought this battery was a fun way to do it. That being said, to get to this point, I had to do some testing. Simple variable changes that I put into the code in order to make sure these values worked, which in the long run gives us 2 new assets that are here to stay for the duration of this project. First, if a player loses health, how do they regain it? That's simple. They use the new screws found around the game as the primary healing item. Screws are a basic healing item that players collect in order to restore their health. Canonically, the rover can self-repair itself as long as it has the materials to do so I figured that having loose screws hanging around would make sense. Why are there loose screws scattered across the surfaces and tunnels of Mars? I think that the ship the rover was on crashed at some point, and pieces of it are scattered around the game, so the rover uses these parts to repair itself if it's damaged. I'll give more details on that later, but you can kind of see that my general game development philosophy is to have a simple explanation as to why mechanics and designs work and look the way they do. Now that we have a way to heal, we don't exactly have a way to take damage, do we? I don't have any enemies yet, all we have is just dirt and screws. Well, I'm proud to announce to you a new element of the game and a face to attach to this game's identity. I present to you, drumroll please, the Spikebot. This is essentially the first enemy of the game, but well, he's not an enemy in the traditional sense. See, originally I was going to make this a spike tile, a basic hazard that's similar to the spikes from the Mario and Kirby series, but I had some fun and made them actual robots. The Spikebot doesn't actually hurt you with its spikes, it emits a high voltage electrical field around itself and damages unsuspecting rovers that dare to try and give it a hug. They can't be destroyed, but by proxy they can't do anything aside from just sit there. I think that might be why they're so grumpy all the time, because I think they're jealous of the rover's legs. In the future, I might give some of the Spikebots rails that they can travel on, and I think I want to animate their eyes following the player's movement. They themselves can't actively try and destroy you, but God do they pray and hope you'll make poor judgment and feel their wrath. There's some lore about the enemies of this game, but I won't go over it just yet. Our next episode is actually all about the enemies, so I'll talk more about the Spikebot and all its deadly buddies when I do my next devlog. For now, just know these guys hate you for the sake of hating you. Kinda reminds me of a certain cloud guy I never made a video on. Either way, I love my vengeful little Spikebot, even though he probably doesn't feel the same way about me. With the health bar created and ways to increase and decrease the variable, we have essentially laid out the groundwork for our gameplay loop, creating threats and a way to recover from them. It'll get more interesting once I give our rover ways to fight his opponents, many of whom will do more than just beg for you to die. But for now, players just have to avoid these guys until it makes them more challenging obstacles. Next up, the energy bar, which as I say at 12 AM sounds like a pretty tasty snack, but it's actually the game's general gameplay loop. Energy is essential to life. I think I heard that in a documentary I slept through once, but it must have stuck with me because now it's one of the core mechanics in this game I'm making. The energy bar works as a timer, constantly counting down. What is it counting down to, you ask? Your death. That's right, if this timer ever reaches 0, the rover dies. Don't let this scare you though, I assure you that you can still change the rover's fate. Alongside the screws, you'll find spare batteries lying around. Picking one up will replenish your energy bar and keep you alive longer. Players will need to find these if they want to survive, but don't worry, they'll be given to you pretty superfluously. But even if you can't find any, there's always another option. Much like the real Mars rovers, our rover is solar powered. While he spends most of his time digging, he can actually go straight up, to the surface of Mars. If the player ever reaches the surface, the rover will get all their energy back within about 5-ish seconds. The surface is your friend. Kinda. See, even if the surface of Mars has plenty of sun, it also has sandstorms. Now, I don't have any sandstorms to show you sports fans just yet, but I promise you that I'll add them. But in this way, the rover actually needs to travel underground to reach their destination because you can't very much move on the surface. Have you ever watched a real Mars rover travel? I'll tell you right now, it's like watching paint dry. Our rover basically decided, I'm gonna do my own thing. No hate on real rovers, they're actually what inspired a lot of the mechanics of this game. It actually makes the digging rover make more sense thematically, and the sandstorm forces players to travel underground while making the surface the safe zone. In a way, this creates a nice gameplay loop. By using the HUD as a warning system, players will track their energy and decide how to proceed accordingly. Using the concept of risk and reward, players will need to plan out how long they'd like to push before they eventually need to think about resurfacing for energy. This gives players a new challenge, and as long as the timer is fair enough, it'll present just the right amount of risk for players to calculate their plan of attack in every scenario. Finally, I'll touch on some tweaking I did from last episode. After talking with some of my friends about the game, I became aware of a certain issue that I wasn't entirely happy with. See, the drilling mechanic, which is one of the most interesting parts, I realized wasn't working the way I wanted. A friend pointed out to me that in order to dig in the game, players would have to mash the button repeatedly to get anywhere, and ultimately digging felt a bit sluggish and annoying. Going back to my inspiration for Dig Dug, I thought maybe players should just hold down the button. Crazy, right? A little harder to figure out though, because this game has gravity. Ultimately, I decided to make the game propel the player in the direction they choose. It smoothly moves the rover into the available space before moving into the next tile, and it frankly makes the game movement a lot smoother. Before, it was actually kind of impossible to reach the surface, mainly because you need to jump to reach the tile above you, sort of like me when I try to reach for the cookie jar on the top shelf. All past problems are now solved with our innovative changes to the controls. Reaching the surface now seems like a viable option for our rover and is even recommended in case of emergencies. Now, I gotta be honest, when I first started making this episode, I thought I would just be working on the menus and HUD, but I sort of realized that there was more to it. First, making the change to the variables, and then actually making the energy system and resurface mechanics. Then I got help from NightTheNight, which I had to shout out, and I was going to tweak some things from the last episode. Long story short, game development is like that sometimes, where you think you have things set in stone, but then you realize there's a lot more work to do in other fields. All that to say, however, I'm extremely satisfied with how this episode came out. I think we made a lot of good progress despite taking twice as long. That was mainly just bad timing with things in my real life, but we're getting back on track. And the project is getting a lot more support than ever, with people actually helping with the project directly. NightTheNight is actually just one of the few people who are now involved with the project directly, but the other people's involvement will be revealed later on, and I'm actually really excited about collaborating with some very talented people to put this puppy together. Alright, that's it for today. The rover's still alive? Barely. We've got enemies coming next episode, so things are about to get a lot worse. But for now, thank you for watching. If you want to keep up with the project, you know where to find me. And if not, the Spikebot probably does. Be sure to click on all the links that I leave here in the description and here in the end card. This has been our third devlog for my weekend on Mars, and I hope you enjoyed. So like I always say, stay hydrated, avoid the blue water, it's got sharks in it, and I'll see you guys next time.